When we think about aliens, our minds usually jump straight to sci-fi movies, right? But what if the most alien-looking creatures we've ever found weren't from some distant planet, but from right here on Earth? Yeah, let's dive into that. Because that's exactly the journey we're taking today. We don't need to fly across the universe. We just need to go back in time, way back, to meet a creature so fundamentally bizarre, scientists today are still arguing about what on earth it even was. So our story begins in a world that would be completely and totally unrecognizable to us. It was, for all intents and purposes, an alien planet that just happened to be our own. Okay, so we're dialing the clock back 310 million years. This is the Carboniferous period, long before the dinosaurs. Earth had one giant supercontinent called Pangaea, and it was surrounded by warm, shallow seas and huge, swampy coastlines. The air was thick, oxygen levels were much higher, and life was, well, it was getting weird. This was like evolution's experimental garage phase. Now, the only reason we even know about the star of our show is thanks to one very special place. An area that's now Illinois was back then a muddy coastline. And when creatures died there, they were buried so quickly that they got trapped in these little rocky nodules, which perfectly preserved their soft bodies. This spot, known as Mazon Creek, is the only place in the entire world we have ever found them. So what did an amateur fossil collector named Francis Tully actually stumble upon in this ancient graveyard? Well, it's time to meet the main character of our mystery. Named after the guy who found it, the Tully Monster wasn't really a monster in terms of size. We're talking just 3 to 14 inches long. Its body was completely soft, kind of like a slug, with zero bones or hard shells. But the front end of this thing, that's where it gets really weird. Sticking right out of its body was this long, flexible nozzle. I mean, think of an elephant's trunk or maybe a vacuum cleaner hose. It could probably bend and stretch this thing out to probe around for food. And at the very tip of that long snout was its mouth, which looked like a little claw. So it probably didn't bite its prey. It would just reach out with its face tentacle, grab a snack with its little claw, and pull it in. And then you have the eyes. Okay, get this. They weren't on its head. They were positioned at either end of a stiff, horizontal bar that stuck out sideways from its body. This gave it this incredible, wide, periscope-like view of the world. It's a design we've never seen on any other animal ever. So you've got this bizarre collection of parts, right? A slug's body, a trunk for a snout, a claw for a mouth, and eyes on a stick. As you can imagine, this has led to a massive scientific identity crisis that is still going on. The entire debate really boils down to one little feature in the fossils, a pale stripe running down its body. One group of scientists, the invertebrate camp, says it's just a gut. Simple. That would make the Tully Monster a very strange kind of swimming slug. But another camp argues that stripe is a notochord, a primitive backbone. And if they're right, this bizarre creature is a vertebrate, a distant cousin of fish, and even a distant relative of us. This quote just sums it up perfectly. It's like it was built from the spare parts bin of 3 completely different animals. It's a biological puzzle that scientists just can't crack. And the mystery just keeps going. The Tully Monster didn't get wiped out in some big mass extinction. There was no asteroid, no supervolcano. It just seems that as the climate changed and its swampy home dried up, its unique evolutionary branch just hit a dead end. It left no descendants behind at all. But here's the thing you have to understand. The Tully Monster wasn't some lone weirdo. It was part of a whole gallery of evolutionary experiments. So let's take a quick look at some of its equally strange neighbors. First up, we have hallucigenia. When scientists first found this thing, they saw these sharp spines on one side and stubby little legs on the other. So naturally, they assumed it walked on the stiff spines like stilts. It took years for better fossils to show them, whoops, they had it completely upside down. Those spines were for defense on its back. Next, meet Opabinia. Look, most animals get by just fine with 2 eyes. Opabinia decided it needed 5 of them, fanned out on top of its head for a full 360-degree view. And if that wasn't enough, it also had a long, flexible face nozzle, kind of like the Tully Monsters. This is just fantastic. When Opabinia was first officially presented at a scientific conference in the 1970s, the entire room of expert paleontologists burst out laughing. They honestly thought it had to be a joke. That's just how impossibly alien this real animal looked. And finally, meet Helicoprion. At a glance, it looks like a prehistoric shark,
But inside its mouth was a biological weapon that baffled scientists for a solid century.
See, instead of losing its old teeth, Helicoprian's jaw just kept them. New teeth would grow and push the old ones forward and inward, creating this perfect spiral of teeth in its lower jaw. It was a literal buzzsaw embedded in its chin. For decades, scientists would find these fossilized tooth whorls and had absolutely no idea where they even went on the animal. So what do all these creatures, the five-eyed shrimp, the upside-down worm, the buzzsaw shark, what do they all tell us about our friend, the Tully Monster? Well, it shows the problem isn't a lack of evidence. We've got thousands of Tully Monster fossils. The problem is its absolute total uniqueness. It doesn't fit into any of our neat little boxes. There's just nothing else like it in the entire history of life on Earth that we've found so far. And that's really the big takeaway here. We like to think of evolution as this clean, straight line leading logically to the animals we see today. But these fossils prove that biology is so much stranger, so much more creative, and way more experimental than any sci-fi movie. And it really leaves you wondering, doesn't it? These are just the bizarre creatures we've happened to stumble upon. So it just makes you ask, what other impossible animals, what other evolutionary detours into the twilight zone are still buried right under our feet, just waiting to be discovered?